Hello friends, my name's the real Emile and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear laps. Today's subject matter is best of the 90s. Now these are the cars most memorable and most iconic from the 1990s. I have used various articles basically saying what the best cars of the 90s was in order to compile a list of 7 vehicles to go around the track today. I've picked a fairly decent variety, so yeah, hopefully it all suits everyone's taste. The first car today is the Nissan Skyline R32, 276 horsepower, 3,307 pounds. This was the first model of Skyline that really got a lot of recognition. It was a very space-age vehicle, 4-wheel drive, twin turbochargers and the like. Anyway, the first corner, relatively okay. As far as the way this car drove, it was pretty good. We have had the R33 around before, and this car had much the same positives and negatives that car had. The biggest downside to this vehicle is the horrible gearbox. It's got the R33 gearbox where the ratios are very, very long. I don't think it's nearly as bad as it was on the R33, but it still isn't particularly great. The R33 around here, for those of you who don't know, it didn't really leave third gear around this entire lap. This, it did come out of third gear, it went into fourth in a couple of stages here and there, but the gear ratios are still too long. As far as the positives though, you've got 4-wheel drive grip, it handles really nicely, doesn't feel weighty at all. You know, it is a 4-wheel drive car, so of course there will be understeer at certain moments. I was having issues getting around this second to last corner, for example. But other than that, the R32 is a pretty damn good car, as you would expect from a Nissan Skyline. Next up we have possibly the most iconic car from the 1990s. I'm doing this in order of age, just in case you're wondering, so we're starting at the top of the 90s and going our way down. This is McLaren F1, 627 horsepower, 2,840 pounds. Yeah. This was the fastest car in the world for many, many years until the Bugatti Veyron came along in 2004. We've had the F1 round a couple of times in Forza 5, and I've got to say it handles much the same as it did there. It doesn't feel nearly as quick as it did in Forza 5 though, especially sort of the times it was getting around this track. I felt it could have gone a little bit faster, but this car has a bit of an issue. It's sort of a similar issue to a car that you'll be seeing in a moment. Basically, when you put the brakes on and start turning a corner, the whole car decides to sort of go sideways to the point where it's almost at a 90-degree angle, which is something you don't want. However, the F1, a pretty decent handling car all in all. Very, very good straight line speed, as you would imagine. Not quite as mind-blowing as the Bugatti EB110 SS we had around a couple of weeks ago, but still a pretty incredible car. Next up we have the Mazda Miata 1994 edition, 128 horsepower, 2,330 pounds. I hope you sat in a comfy chair because of course this lap will take a bit of a while. The Miata is not the fastest car in the world. It's the least powerful car here today, it's the lightest car here today. One of the least powerful cars around here ever, I think, as far as the cars we've had round before are concerned. Miata, even with this little amount of horsepower though, this is a pretty damn fun car to drive. The steering is very immediate, it's direct. You can get the rear end out in this car. It's not that hard to do really, because the amount, sort of how fast the turning goes in, because of how fast the turning goes in, the rear end on this car can come out occasionally. Apparently I hit that tyre bundle there, I think. In case you're wondering, this isn't the time lap, this was one of the subsequent laps. The way I basically work this is I throw the cars around for 6 laps, and then the best time out of those 6 laps is chosen, but whatever you see on your screens, like the actual lap when the car's going around, that is genuinely the last lap I take with the vehicle. Usually, so this isn't the fastest lap the Miata did, but yeah, fun car, if a bit slow, not really built for this sort of track. Catalonia School Circuit is more this sort of car's territory, but still fun, definitely fun. Next up we have a Ferrari F355 Berlinetta, 375 horsepower, 3,196 pounds. This was the big Ferrari of its day, sort of how the 458 and 488 are of today. This has much the same issue as the McLaren F1 did, with the whole braking into a corner and going 90 degrees. The F355, I've driven this a few times. I drove it in a time attack build against a Volvo Amazon, and I wasn't particularly impressed with the way this car handles. It's not great, to be honest with you. The rear end on this does like to come out. It's a little bit twitchy. It isn't quite as fast as you would think. It's still fairly decent. I mean, 375 horsepower is still an awful lot, especially for a 1994 car. But yeah, it isn't quite as good a handling as you would think. Still, around this track, it was reasonably good. It definitely isn't the worst vehicle I've driven around here. Definitely isn't the worst mid-engine vehicle I've driven around here. Mid-engine cars, they usually have problematic handling. It's just a sort of downside of using that sort of configuration. Most of your weight is towards the rear of the vehicle. But the 355, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Speaking of mid-engine cars, next up we have a Lamborghini Diablo, 530 horsepower, 3,474 pounds. It's a very purple Lamborghini Diablo, this one. Yeah, the Diablo was, again, the big Lambo of the time. This is the V12 Monster. And, yeah, it was a pretty tame vehicle to drive around here, actually. The Diablo has a reputation for being not the most user-friendly car in the world, much as most other Lambos before their acquisition by Audi. But the Diablo was pretty good. I found this nicer to drive than the F355, and to be honest with you, nicer to drive than the McLaren F1. The Diablo is a nice controlled vehicle. It is on the heavier side, 3,474 pounds, makes it the heaviest car here today, actually. But it wasn't too bad, the Diablo, to be honest with you. I like driving this car around here. You could take decent amount of speed through the corners. It was a good car. You don't expect that from this car. It looks very scary and menacing, but it's actually just a big car. It's a very nice, controllable car. Yeah, that's all what I've got to say about the Diablo. Surprisingly quick as well, as most Lamborghinis are around this track. And next up we have a Toyota Supra RZ, 320 horsepower, 3,229 pounds. I can imagine most of you have been wanting to see this car go around for a while. When I did Japanese cars, this was the only sort of main Japanese JDM car I didn't send round, so of course the Supra had to go around. Back in Forza 5, this was a very, very nice handling car. In Forza 6, not so much, I'm afraid. This definitely handles a lot more like you'd expect it to in this game. In Forza 5, it was kind of controllable, whereas in this, in Forza 6, the rear end does come out on this car a bit more than it used to. It's also not helped by the fact the suspension seems suspiciously soft. Like the R32, that's a much older car than this. I believe the R32 is 6 years older. And the suspension on that was nice and firm. In this, it's quite soft. It's a little bit wallowy, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that's the best way to describe the Supra. Still not a terrible handling car by any stretch of imagination. Not the worst rear-wheel drive car to go around here at all. Supra is a pretty decent car overall. Good straight line speed and so on. It's got a decent amount of power. 320 horsepower isn't actually that far off the F355. Which is quite incredible when you think about it. Yep, Supra is a pretty decent car, just a little bit wayward for me. And finally today we have the Dodge Viper GTS ACR from 1999, 460 horsepower, 3,450 pounds of weight. This was the biggest surprise of the day because the Viper ACR from 1999 is a fantastic handling car. This really is I don't know what it is with the Dodge Vipers in Forza 6. They all appear to drive absolutely fantastically. The Viper, you'd expect it to be very scary. It has a very big 8-litre V10 engine, 460 horsepower. It's one of the most powerful cars here today. It's actually the second heaviest as well, only losing out to the Diablo slightly. But the Viper is a very, very controllable car. It's got virtually no understeer, no oversteer. I had no issues with this car. whatsoever. I might even go as far to say that it is the nicest handling car here today, which is something you wouldn't expect to be said about a Dodge Viper. Very quick as well, as you can see there through the tyres. Vipers around here are very quick anyway. I don't know what it is. Like, I can imagine Vipers aren't the nicest thing to drive in the world, but for some reason here on Forza, they are. So there you go, and across the line, the McLaren F1 goes into 7th with a 114.929. Only beating an EB110 Supersport by a little bit, which is quite incredible when you consider those cars were around at the same time. The Lamborghini Diablo is very quick, going into 25th with a 118.590, marginally beating the Fast and Furious Supra, but still slower than the Shelby GT350R, which is quite amazing. Dodge Viper 99 goes into 32nd with a 120.345, which is fantastically quick. Ferrari F355 Berlinetta 121.755, decently quick, faster than a Dodge Hellcat and a BMW M4, which is quite remarkable for a car of that age. Next up, we have the Nissan Skyline R32 going into 42nd with a 124.093, marginally slower than a 2015 Mustang, which is quite incredible. And the Supra RZ 46, 125.095, beating a Subaru Impreza just. Not the fastest car around here by any stretch of imagination, but pretty decent overall. And finally, the Mazda Miata goes into 71st with a 113.423. One of the slower cars we've had around here, but that wasn't really surprising for the Miata. So anyway, friends, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Top Gear Laps. Next week, we're going to be doing best of the early 2000s. So feel free to leave comments on cars that you think should be going round from that time period. But of course, I will be compiling the list from various internet sources and so on. But anyway, friends, thank you all very much for watching. I'm Spin the Real Emile. Until next time, farewell.